What does it actually mean to be a civilized nation? Is it just about having towering skyscrapers, a massive GDP, or maybe the strongest military? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break down a really fascinating 2021 framework by an author named Xu Feng. What he created is this incredibly strict 9-point diagnostic tool designed to measure a nation's true progress. We are so used to measuring progress with economic or technological metrics, right? But this text takes a completely different, much more foundational approach to defining what actually makes a society civilized.
Xu Feng originally aimed this exact, highly provocative question at his native China. He was essentially asking his readers to hold up a mirror to their current reality and critically measure the distance between that reality and true civilization. But as we'll see, the framework he built is incredibly universal. It literally challenges anyone, anywhere, to hold up that same mirror to their own society.
All right, to set the stage here, the author kicks things off with this powerful philosophical premise. Think of it like this. Just as your DNA determines your individual traits, like your eye color or your natural disposition, a nation's status quo is never just an accident. It's essentially genetic. It's the direct accumulation and inheritance of its history and culture. So the current state of a society is totally determined by its historical essence. Meaning, if we want to understand where a nation is going and how civilized it actually is, we have to look really deeply at the structural realities it has inherited and built over time.
So here is our agenda for today. We're going to systematically break down Xu Feng's 9 markers of civilization into 3 core themes. 1. Governance and rights. 2. Society and upward mobility. And 3. Global and ecological ethics.
Let's dive straight into theme 1, governance and rights. Okay, so point 2 of Xu Feng's text lays it out clear as day. In a civilized nation, the government functions solely as a servant to the public. It is never a manager and absolutely not a ruler. And that's a really profound distinction. I mean, politicians certainly love to call themselves public servants, but this diagnostic tool demands they actually act like it. Think about it. A ruler demands obedience. A manager dictates operations, but a true servant exists strictly to facilitate the well-being of the citizens. If a government is out there demanding obedience rather than serving its people, it fails the civilization test right out of the gate.
And because the government is just a servant, point 3 naturally follows. The masters, which by the way is us, the public, must have absolute freedom. A civilized nation requires that its people have the completely unrestricted freedom to move around domestically or travel abroad. It requires the unhindered freedom of speech, the absolute right to express differing views without any fear of retaliation, and the total freedom of belief and association. The text makes it clear these aren't just privileges granted by some benevolent leader. They are the absolute baseline, non-negotiable requirements of a society where the people are actually in charge.
Now, I absolutely love this next part. To illustrate the sanctity of private space, Xu Feng uses this classic, incredibly powerful metaphor in point 4. Wind can enter, rain can enter, the king cannot enter. It essentially means your private domain is absolute. No matter how powerful the state becomes, without the owner's explicit permission, no one, literally not even the highest authority in the land, can simply barge in. A true civilization respects the physical and personal boundaries of the individual, way above any desires of the state.
Point 5 takes that strict boundary and extends it to your personal assets. Wealth and private property that you've accumulated through your own diligence, hard work, and wisdom must be fiercely protected. And it's not enough for a government to just give a verbal promise not to take it. There has to be ironclad legislative protection. True civilization entirely removes the anxiety of having your life's work arbitrarily seized from you. It ensures that individuals are legally and completely secure in the fruits of their own labor.
Moving right along to our second theme, society and upward mobility.
So, point 1 of Xu Feng's framework dictates that no laborer should ever have to stress over basic survival. A civilized society is really judged from the bottom up by how its everyday workers and most vulnerable are treated. It ensures that workers can live in true peace with their basic needs met. We're talking food, clothing, having a shelter, and reliable transport. Furthermore, it emphasizes the bookends of life, ensuring that the elderly are properly cared for and the youth are fully educated. If these bare basics aren't met for the working class, the nation just hasn't reached civilization yet.
But listen, mere survival? That isn't enough. Point 6 argues that stagnation is fundamentally uncivilized. A true civilization guarantees the poorest members of society clear, accessible ladders and channels for promotion. It is entirely about hope. Because if the poor are trapped without any real mechanism for upward mobility, they lose the desire to even pursue a better life. A civilized nation has to be dynamic, offering absolutely everyone a realistic chance to climb and improve their standing. Now take a look at point 8 and notice who is and isn't on this list. When pointing out who a civilized society elevates, it doesn't single out the rulers or the wealthiest elites. Instead, it elevates the creators, the thinkers, and the caretakers. Craftsmen, technicians, engineers, artists, inventors, experts, teachers, and doctors. Honoring those who actually build, heal, educate, and inspire the nation over those who simply govern is a massive indicator of a flourishing civilization. When a society respects these specific roles, it signals a deep structural alignment with actual human progress. Which brings us to our third and final theme, global and ecological ethics. According to point 7, being civilized extends far beyond just human interaction. A truly civilized nation requires a profound, universal reverence for all life and for nature itself. This means absolutely no arbitrary harm to animals, with a huge emphasis on protecting wildlife. It's kind of the ultimate test of empathy, right? Extending the protective umbrella of civilization beyond our own species. A society that exploits or just casually destroys the natural world around it completely fails this essential diagnostic test. And summarizing point 9, the text asserts that a civilized nation acts with immense global humility in its international conduct. It refuses to engage in aggressive nationalism. It treats other nationalities kindly and outright rejects the idea of attacking others for so-called national interests. It also completely avoids petty international comparisons. It doesn't use its own advantages to mock the shortcomings of others, nor does it sit around envying other nations' advantages. It is secure, it's peaceful, and it is respectful on the global stage.
All right, so how do we put this all together? Let's talk about calculating the distance.
Here's the thing. The author doesn't hand you the final answer. Instead, he hands you the formula and instructs you to take these criteria and use them as your own personal diagnostic tool. Step 1. Review those 9 signs of a national civilization we just covered, from a servant government all the way to global humility. Step 2. Look out your window. Assess the current situation based on your own feelings and lived reality. And step 3. Calculate the actual mathematical distance between where you are right now and where a civilized nation truly ought to be. So, using Zhufang's 9-point rubric, we are going to leave you with this final, lingering challenge. Run the calculation yourself. When you look past the GDP and those towering skyscrapers, and you run this exact diagnostic on your own society, what number do you get? And perhaps more importantly, what are you going to do to help close that gap?